What's up, everyone? It's Devin from SongPsych, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Gaël, a really talented up-and-coming artist who has an awesome project that just came out. How are you feeling, Gaël?
Hi, excited, anxious to see how people react. It just came out, so I'm gonna stay off the internet for the first couple of days. But yeah, I'm excited, just a lot of feelings at the same time. But thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Where are you from?
I'm actually from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, born and raised there. I spent the majority of my life there until I went to college.
That's a big adjustment coming from there to here to go to college. How was that experience?
I would say honestly, because America has such a strong cultural influence on much of the smaller countries, well, in the world, but specifically in Southern and Central America. I was very accustomed to a lot of American ways through movies, through music, through people simply traveling and coming back and wanting to act ways they see their foreign cousins act when they went to New York or whatever. So I've always been familiar with American culture to some degree. So it was not that much of a culture shock at that point. Yeah, by the time I came to college, it was the biggest adjustment was being independent, because I grew up pretty close to my family and just very I would say in our own little bubble. So I think that was probably the biggest adjustment. I've been making music since I was 14.
Wow.
I wasn't very good until I was 19, about to be 20, but it all started, I remember I lived in Brockton, Massachusetts around 2010, 2011. I was a huge Lil Wayne fan and a huge Boston Celtics fan. I played point guard at the time, and there was the point guard at the time, Rajon Rondo, was my favorite player. I loved him. And Lil Wayne, my favorite rapper, had a song about his favorite player, R.I.P. to him, the legend Kobe Bryant. I thought I'd write something about my favorite player. I know, I'm pretty sure that was the first thing I ever wrote. It was a 16-bar verse about Rondo and his skills and stuff like that and how I'm like him or whatever.
So you have siblings, you mentioned?
I do, actually. I have an older brother who I actually live with, and an older sister, and a younger foster brother.
Did they ever influence your music, give you, advice?
I think my sister, she's like the fan who kind of wants you to stick to one thing. So it's whenever I send her something kind of different, she'll tell me whether it's good or she'll tell me if she likes it or whatever. She'll be honest, but she'll say, "Oh, I like your old stuff better," or even though it was the first thing I ever put out, and I'm like, that's not even me. That's kind of a regurgitation of all my influences, and not even barely any influences at the time. It was kind of pretty obvious, kind of wear J. Cole and Joey Badass on my sleeve in my first album in 2018, which is I have no problem with that because it was my first project. But she's just really supportive. She'll repost my stuff. But specifically advice, not really. My brother lives, literally we share a wall. So anything I've made from November 2019 till now, he's heard as I'm making it. When my producer sends me beats, whatever. So he hears everything. So he'll step in, tell me if he likes something, tell me if he thinks maybe I should do something different. Sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't. I'm super open to criticism. So yeah, I really appreciate them. It's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. And the point you made about your sister is so, that's just such a real thing, you know what I mean? Because it's nice to have someone who sort of plays that role, because so many artists, I feel run into that problem when they want to evolve their sound, and then their fans from day one are like, "Oh, I like your old stuff," but what if you don't like your old stuff? You know what I mean?
I think the funny thing for me is I'm glad this happened with her, because it kind of gives me a heads up. Everybody's gonna have their opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. So my producer says this all the time, because he's been at it much longer than I am. So we just know, it's just kind of an energy we have when we create. Is we're not really worried about what people are gonna think of it. We just kind of make it, and that's why the project, I would personally say, is so diverse in terms of sound. The idea is the project is so diverse they can't pin me down into anything anyway. So my idea is to make people used to the fact that I don't give a fuck, I just make great music.
Yeah, that's actually what I noticed a lot when I first listened to your project, was how different each beat felt, but they all still worked together. And I don't know, I think it just really showed how versatile you are as an artist. Each song is so good, but feels so unique at the same time.
I think what makes this record the way it is that every beat was made for the words. Like everything was just kind of made together. So there was no room for any disconnect. They just kind of feel like one, like they were composed together. They're instruments that are picked because the person's voice sounds specifically a certain way. So it just all weaved together. I think if I sat down with the goal of writing a project, I would freak myself out. I don't think I could do that.
So when you sat down to write this project, like what was that like? Like you didn't really anticipate writing an album?
So the first song on the album, Gold Teeth, was written within the first week of me and my producer knowing each other, but that was the first thing we ever made, actually, because the first time we hung out, had kind of like a dead session for like the first 3 hours, and then towards the end, we were going over some samples, and this one kind of stood out to us. We played it a couple times, played with it. If you heard the album at this point, the first record has a really like strong, like dirty bass.
Got my foot up on the gas with my baby on my right. Windows tinted cause her future's so bright. Lately I've been chilling in the...
That was kind of like the first thing he brought after the sample, and I was kind of sold, and like I just knew I wanted to keep working with him. And yeah, so that kind of was like the basis for every time we linked. We just kind of put samples on, or I would show him something I started writing, and it would just come up with something. So there was never any plan at all. Like I was just meeting this guy. We were just kind of reading each other and just like seeing what we can make. It was just like a year of like just a lot of work floating and just kind of like pushing ourselves. So but yeah, like I said, we didn't sit down and say, yo, let's write a project. That's not my style. Like I'm kind of like organized chaos. I can't just sit down and be like, all right, so we're going to write a project. It's going to be 10 songs. No. I didn't even know what I wanted to talk about. And so like, I think there are maybe 3 songs that I wrote that aren't on the project that I wrote before writing the second song of the project. So it wasn't kind of like, oh, I have all these songs. Oh, that's an album. No, it was kind of like I could tell what was connected and what was happening for a reason. But I never overthought it because that would just kill the flow of the project. It would come out unnatural.
You mentioned earlier that Joey Badass was one of your influences. Is he an influence on this project too? Like, who are your influences on this new album?
Okay, so the one artist and project we had in mind when we went into making this, and this is not based on the sound, but more just kind of the approach, that was My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West, just because he's so open to collaboration. And I was just really getting to the music scene in New York and like meeting a lot of talented singers, musicians, blah, blah, blah. So like I was just kind of like, I really want to like make sure this project has a bunch of talented people on this. Like on this record, we got a couple vocalists.
Yeah, I'll do anything for ya.
We have 2 bass players. We have somebody on the piano. It's just a great approach that we wanted to take, was kind of like being open to collaboration and not being so caught up in like, oh, this is my project, like, or our project. That's the main influence we had going into it. But in retrospect, if I were to look at it, I would say probably Kanye West. And this is in terms of sound. I would say there is some Kanye influences, particularly in the first song, and J. Cole for sure in a couple records where I'm straight rapping like outside.
I've been feeling like wealth maybe, cause I've been working with the best of the best, bringing stress to the rest of this competition.
Black Denim.
I lie awake, my heart is aching and I don't know how to catch a breaking on my back inside my bedroom.
HYRD.
I love to carry her, she's far from a burden, but I know nothing that's heavier than my heart when it's hurting, and all this music and endeavors I've been working.
Those 3 songs I would say like have heavy J. Cole influences in terms of like my delivery and stuff like that. Oh, some Brockhampton too. Kevin Abstract with Alright.
Cause you might get it, my lap in Armageddon. No, I never graduated, every day a different lesson.
That was like, when I made that was kind of like an accidental song. Kevin Abstract is one of my favorite artists. If he ever watches this, I hope he knows. Like, I fuck with his music so hard. Like, he's so honest and open and just like willing to experiment. So yeah, that's definitely, he's also a big influence of mine, period. I would say in terms of writing, let me go on a little tangent. Just being influenced by J. Cole and Joey Badass, they're kind of like classical rappers, like, you know, in the pocket, like flipping words and syllables and doing all kinds of like, you know, double entendres, etc. And just like really like enunciating and hitting the pocket and like really getting you captivated by their flow. And Kevin Abstract also has an awesome flow, but one thing I picked up from him, and especially hearing him rap in Brockhampton, just like kind of like the free form of not being contained by the beat, like just kind of going out of the pocket, almost like jazz rapping over the beat. So I think it was kind of like when I first heard that instrumental for All Right, Steve sent it to me. No intention of making a song with it. I don't know, I just kind of hear it and like the melody just came to me and I just wrote it, and it's a really short song, so within like the hour I had it recorded, so I sent it to him.
Where do you look when the present haunts you as much as the past? Foot on the gas, lit the bottles on the dashboard.
And he like was like, what the fuck? How did you rap on this? And the thing is, I had never rapped on anything like this. I had been listening to Kevin Abstract a lot, writing a lot of things I feel like kind of came from that influence, but nothing I really felt comfortable, especially if I was going into it with that mindset. Like this was just kind of like I wrote to it, and then after I was like, this reminds me of Kevin Abstract, because there are spots where I'm offbeat and not in the pocket, and those probably would have driven me crazy like years ago, but like now it's just kind of like why I love the song. I think Steve is my producer. He goes by Billa. He'd kill me if I don't say this, but the solo in the first record, that's his ode to Eddie Van Halen. Because that's his guy. He says that's the most like rock solo he's really had in his career. So that's pretty dope to have it on a hip hop record.
What I also love about this project so much is how genuine it feels too. Like I can really tell that you made this because you like it.
Although I do care about what people think about it, the opinion I care the most about is mine. If I were to make something that pleased everybody and they liked it, I don't care how much money it gave me. And I know it's cliche to say that, like, no, it would make me want to vomit. I couldn't handle it mentally. I wouldn't be able to reconcile that. So I think making the type of music that I'm at peace with and comfortable with and proud of, and hoping people like it, because I do care what people think, sadly. But the main thing is just about knowing that this is a project I love, and that no matter what, I'm gonna like stand by it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy. Like that was like awesome.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming. I love that. That was awesome. You mentioned that you wanted to plug your merch.
Oh yeah.
So plug.
Okay, so yeah, I have this like this merch that's coming out. It's actually, the link should be available in my bio actually. On Instagram, we got hoodies, t-shirts, we have masks. Basically it's merch that dropped with the album. We got the cover art in the back with the artist's signature at the bottom right. Says Black Denim Records presents Black Denim. And it has a line from the intro of the album on the front in the shape of a smiley face. Says, I've been changing how I view demons, which kind of like I feel like encompasses the whole project, which is kind of like using my demons as a stepping stone. Says my name right here, Gaël. And on the other sleeve, we have my producer's name. Expect a lot more music from us 2021, like a lot more. Instagram is Real Gaël Music, RealGael Music.